Okay, welcome everyone to our February Q&A on astrology for the Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program. Again, we are just coming to the end of the Rashi and signs, the focus on the Rashi and signs. So we want to focus on that today. We will be digging into the bhavas and the houses coming up next month and into the following month. I've got a few questions that have already been sent to me that we need to look at. But those of you who have questions, again, focusing on the Rashis and signs, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box while we go. That way, once we get through the questions that have been emailed, for those who might not be able to be here today, we can speak to your questions. We're going to do our best to get through all of them. Some of these questions, it looks like, might take a little more involved discussion, but we'll see how it goes. So let's get started. Now, the next part of this question deals with really why astrology can be very helpful to people and how an understanding of the signs, an understanding of the Rashis can help you as an astrologer or anyone studying astrology figure out how to actively direct and change their life. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read this little excerpt from Ernst Wilhelm's commentary on Jaimini Upadesha Sutras. Again, this is from chapter 1, pada 1, verse 2. So he writes that Rashi aspects present an interesting concept. Movable Rashis are creative. So movable or active Rashis are creative. They create and are therefore changeable. The fixed Rashis are the reflections of the movable Rashis. They themselves are therefore not changeable. They can only change after the movable Rashis have changed. Each fixed Rashi is aspected by 3 movable Rashis. Therefore, a fixed Rashi can only change after changes have occurred in the 3 movable Rashis. In order to change those things in a fixed Rashi, the bhavas, so meaning the houses, the bhavas, and planets in the aspect and movable Rashis must first be changed. Rashis always bring about some change in the bhavas and planets falling in the aspected fixed Rashis. So why is this so helpful? Well, most of you who are listening to this and are here today have probably already made it through the Rashis and signs section of this course. And you've probably made it a little further too, where we've discussed how the signs and the Rashis essentially are the chakras of the human organism. So the energetic centers within the human body. And that's why you can put 12 of us in a room and something can happen in that room. And more than likely, each one of us will interpret and respond to what happened differently. Why? Because we're seeing that experience through the energies within our chakras, within our Rashis. And how do we know what is the energy, or what are the energies, the influences within our chakras? Well, all we have to do is look at the astrological chart and see where are the planets. Each planet is going to impact a chakra in its own particular way. So for example, if we look at the heart chakra, well, what is the heart chakra? The heart chakra is Taurus and Libra. We know that Taurus, being the natural second sign of the zodiac, represents the negative polarity, the feminine aspect of that chakra. We know that Libra, being the natural 7th sign of the zodiac, represents the positive polarity, the more masculine aspect of the heart chakra. And so if we want to know what's going on with a person's heart chakra, well, we need to look at a few things. We need to look to see, what is Venus doing? Because Venus rules over that chakra, or is the steward of that chakra. If Venus is debilitated in Virgo, then this tends to indicate that one is not necessarily going to always make good choices related to their relationships that support the idea of self-value, self-love. It's going to hamper the person's ability to do that because Venus is debilitated in Virgo. But let's say that we have some manifesting and some gentle planets impacting that chakra, either by being in Taurus or Libra, or by Rashi aspecting Taurus and Libra. First of all, that's going to tell us that this person is going to have, in a sense, a feeling of grace, an ability to grow, an ability to understand, ability to comprehend how to possibly heal that debilitated Venus. So just looking at that alone, looking at where's the Lord of the the signs, the Rashis that represent that chakra, and what is the state of that Lord? What is it up to? That's going to tell us what kind of karmas are naturally going to be expressed or expected in life. And then we can look to see what planets are actually in those signs, again, with heart chakra, Taurus and Libra, or Rashi aspecting Taurus and Libra. And through those Rashi aspects, we'll get a better sense of, is this person going to be able to have a greater capacity to grow within the experience of the heart chakra? Or does it become even more difficult? Do they have the nodes within Taurus and Libra? Do they have Mars or Saturn or the sun or a waning moon in or Rashi aspecting Taurus or Libra? Each of those aspects is going to impact that field. Remember, the signs are the fields, but the chakras are the energy fields of our body, the energy fields of our karma. So if we can get this full picture, that's going to tell us in general, what is the person going to expect? And probably how are they going to behave? That's the Lord. And then when it comes to the Rashi, the sign itself, with planets in the Rashian sign or sending, following the flow of Rashi aspects to that sign, what is their capacity to grow or to understand that experience? And if it's positive, that's great. If it's negative, that's not so great. But getting back to this question, what Ernst is talking about in this kind of description is how to make changes within our life. So, for example, if we're looking at, let's just pull up an example here. This is for another question, but we can use it just for our purposes. Share screen. Okay. So if we look at this chart right here, and let's go ahead and look at the idea of the heart chakra, which again we know is Taurus and Libra. So we have the fixed sign, we have the active sign. Now what we want to know is, how is this being impacted? Well, we have Jupiter, Rashi aspecting the fixed sign of Taurus. So Jupiter, and it's also exalted. That's going to be helpful. So the dignities can help us see in generally the general positivity or negative qualities of an aspect. And we know that Jupiter being a benefic, even if he wasn't in good dignity, he would still try. He just wouldn't do that great of a job. So we have Jupiter Rashi aspecting this fixed sign. We have Saturn Mars coming from Leo, Rashi aspecting the active sign. All right. So there's a mix here. There's a mixture. Now looking at this chart, I would see there's a balance there, because that exalted or retrograde Jupiter, we know that retrograde brings the planet closer to the Earth, which tends to empower that planet. That's going to have a really powerful ability to outweigh a lot of the difficulty we see here coming from Mars and Saturn. And if we want to see what Venus is up to, well, we have Venus ruling over the heart chakra, going into Scorpio, and that's in a friend sign. So Venus itself is really going to be doing all right on its own, but this person is going to have to contend with the difficulty of Saturn and Mars causing restriction, frustration, a sense of extreme criticism towards one's expression in the world. But they're going to have the support and benefit of this exalted Jupiter here too. So they're going to learn, they're going to grow from it. But now let's say that we want to figure out how to really push this over the top, to give the person the ability to tap into the influences of the heart chakra with a greater capacity. What do we need to do? Well, we know that in order to change something based on what we've read from the Jaimini Upadesha Sutras, we need to look at the fixed chakra, which here, or the fixed part of the chakra, which here is going to be Taurus, and we need to consider what are the active Rashi aspects that are impacting this particular sign. And so the Rashi aspects coming from the active sign are coming from Cancer. Here we have Jupiter in Cancer. And we also have Rahu coming from Libra here. So what would you tell someone to do in order to positively overcome this Mars and this Saturn? Well, number one, you would certainly tap into this Jupiter, and you would encourage them to explore Jupiterian things, higher knowledge, even higher education. You would encourage them to probably find a counselor and work with a counselor. You would encourage them to find a guru or a spiritual tradition by putting your awareness on this Jupiter. That's going to amplify its ability to flow to the fixed sign here, and it will change any issues, any difficulties with this fixed sign. You could also look to Rahu, because Rahu is going to have an impact here. And Rahu itself, it's in Libra. That's not too bad. We know that the Lord of Rahu is in a friend sign. So Rahu is going to act fairly positively in this particular situation. But what would that mean for Rahu sending or having its energy carried by a Rashi aspect? We have to be careful with this terminology, because remember, the planets and the grahas, they are not actively themselves looking and sending the energy. It's being carried. So with Rashi aspects, the energy is flowing, it's being carried. Well, with Rahu, what are some positive qualities of Rahu? You would encourage the person to challenge their boundaries, to not get caught up in dogma, to explore different aspects of life that they're not used to, that was different than, say, what they were raised with within their family, to push their boundaries a little bit, to make themselves more comfortable in newer situations, to, since it's in Libra, to try to meet people of different and diverse backgrounds. And so by doing that, what's happening here is we're looking at these planets, which are sending Rashi aspects to the fixed sign here of Taurus. That's what's going to actively change and empower what's related to this chart. And what is this chart? It's not just the heart chakra. It's also in this chart is representative of the seventh house. So it's going to put a profound impact on one's relationship. So how should one change their relationships? Zoom out a little bit. How would one change their relationships based on this chart in a positive way? Well, you would focus on Jupiter, you'd focus on Rahu in regards to how it's sending those Rashi aspects to the seventh house. And you're going to find that to be true with any part of this chart. So let's look again. Let's see if we can come up with another example. Let's just look at the fixed sign of the first house. Okay, what if one wants to make positive changes in who they are and their expression in the world? Well, we see that their first house is Scorpio. And that means that, generally speaking, they can't just reinvent themselves. They can't just focus on first house things and reinvent who they are. They can't make a decision. Today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to wear a dress instead of a suit. Or today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to act this way instead of that way. Because it's a fixed sign, it can't change on its own. Now, if this was Aries, that would be different, but it's not, it's Scorpio. So what would this person need to do to look at in order to actually make changes in regards to their health, their presentation to the world, how they look, these types of things, how people perceive them? Well, you would need to look at the active signs that Rashi aspect this fixed sign of the first house. What are those active signs? Again, we have Jupiter. Jupiter is key for this person because it's coming from Cancer. We have Ketu coming from Aries, flowing down to Scorpio. So again, we would focus on the qualities of Jupiter. We would focus on the qualities of their ninth house. We would tell them to explore their ninth house, things related to the ninth house, cultivate and make changes there that will alter first house issues for them. Or we tell them to look at the sixth house, how they are of service to others, how they take care of their body and their health, the challenges and the obstacles that they put themselves in. So again, personal growth through challenges and obstacles. And with Ketu here, it's a little bit different than Rahu. We can tell them to consider Ketu-related things such as their family history or issues that their family had to deal with. And if they're able, or even being of service to their family, since Ketu can deal with the ancestors. And by directing their attention in this way to these active signs and the planets that are within the active signs, that will help to alter and shift what's going on in the first house. Now, we can also, to a degree, look at the signs themselves. The moon rules over Cancer. Jupiter is in Cancer. So we know that on some level, looking at the lunar qualities of the ninth house will be important. We can look at Aries. Mars rules over Aries. Ketu is in Aries. We can look at how the person uses their willpower, how a person uses their initiative in all these types of things. Rather than what often happens with Ketu in the sixth house, there's a lack of active will, and they just kind of get more into a fatalistic, oh, well, my family was this way. My family acted this way. My family had these health issues. Well, they need to be aware of that mindset, knowing that it's Ketu in the sixth house, in the sign of Aries, and they need, in order to change themselves, they have to challenge these systems that they have related to what their family did, how their family behaved, and try to find a way to improve upon that or make positive changes rather than being stuck in more of a fatalistic approach. So when we're thinking about this question of how do the Rashi aspects and the signs, how can they help us make positive changes within our life? Well, this is one of the most important areas of astrology. And really, if you simply took what I was just talking about and you learned all the qualities of the planets, you learned all the qualities of the signs, you learned all the qualities of the houses in which these things were occurring, and you understood how things change by engaging the changeable parts of our life, that alone could give you probably enough insight to help anyone who ever came to you. You wouldn't even need Vimshottari Dasha. You wouldn't need the Vargas. You wouldn't need all this stuff. You could simply focus on that. Why? Because this is what's going on with the chakras. And this is the person's experience. This is the client's experience. This is your experience. So spend some time contemplating this a little bit more.